Went over to Maui, had an interesting time. Got some good stuff to report on today.
Let's get to it.
All right. So I put some of my tweets into this kind of text so you can see it. The 4 things that we learned from Maui. This is the first one. There's still a huge lack of transparency. And this is plain and simple. The citizens of Lahaina don't deserve to be left in the dark. They need answers, not only to find out why the fire started, because there's a ton of opinions about that, but to see exactly what broke down during the time of crisis so they can be better prepared in case of the next fire, to prevent any loss of life. So that's what's going on there. There's questions about why it started, why the alarms weren't sounded, a lot of the stuff we have talked about on the show.
And there's no answers for any of this, meaning, so that's what you mean when you say there's still no transparency.
None.
And because I've seen a press conference from the mayor, from the police chief. Nobody's got any answers. The guy who withheld the water, they shipped him out, right? And the guy who didn't put the alarms on, he's gone too. Nobody's has to answer any of these questions, and the people of Maui are still left in the dark.
Absolutely. And even the governor doesn't take their questions at their press conferences or their meeting. He walked out of the last meeting before even it was time to have interaction with the citizens, and they were just pissed off. And other than this one Congresswoman, Ellie Cochran, and Tulsi Gabbard, most of the people say our elected officials are nowhere to be seen. They're nowhere to be found. And they're doing things like we're talking about the water guy.
Yeah.
He was shelved. And the citizens are suing to get his ass back over there because they want answers to the questions on why this happened and why, more importantly, Jimmy, there was such a huge friggin' breakdown during the crisis itself. Because it was everything we talked about confirmed. No water, electricity not working, no sirens, no warning of this fire, police blocking people in.
And turning them back into the fire.
Everything confirmed.
And no one has any explanations for any of that. No one's answering those questions.
Yeah. I think they've put out little statements that are kind of just like little pissy answers. Oh, the water pipes weren't working properly because the electrical system was down. Well, why is that happening? It shouldn't do that. We should have water pump to these areas. Oh, the water pipes were bursted, so it was draining the system. And I talked to an activist who's kind of concentrating on the water system itself. It was one of the last interviews we did in Hawaii, so we're gonna bring more of that throughout the whole week. There's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, but they want answers, and they all know about Ukraine. They say it all the time. How can they send all this money to Ukraine? And we get ugats. We get nothing over here. I do have a quick video. I ended up interviewing this guy, but listen to what he's got to say.
Police officer that was over there, he should be investigated. I was told by people who escaped there on foot that the officer had blocked the road. People could not get out. My brother literally had to go cut the chain off of the old sugar mill camp area to let people out at the top of Kilauea Mauka because the roads were all blocked because the police were blocking it. We want accountability. It needs to be investigated by a third party that is not associated with the government. I was blocked out several days. I could not come in. It was chaos. People was rioting. What's on those documents for FEMA? I'm an attorney myself. There's so many things that are questionable that has happened here. Right after that, the governor says, oh, I'm going to take the land. He's talking about the state wants to purchase all this land, that he should get this land. Does that belong to the people already? Okay. The government is liable for this, grossly negligent, at least if not criminally negligent. They should clean up all that land, restore that land to the people who own that because they failed.
Wow.
Yeah. I interviewed him.
Oh, okay. Really?
I interviewed him. Yeah, it's in post-production right now, but I interviewed him. He's a lawyer. He's a local. He's an indigenous person to that island.
So the governor said he wants to take all that land? What?
Well, that's the thing. He's kind of teetered back and forth that, he's used the excuse that vulture capitalists are coming in, real estate people, and he wants to block that.
So he's saying, in order to block the vulture capitalists from taking that land, the governor is going to have the government take that land and then somehow give it back to the people who own it? Bingo. Is that really what he thinks is going to happen? That's not going to happen. If the government takes that land, it's over.
Yeah, well, that's the other area, and I think when we need some transparency, Jimmy and I put this up. Also, another area in which the people of Lahaina need full transparency is what and where their elected officials are invested in as far as global entities such as the UN and the WEF, so they can combat any agenda that tries to unlawfully dictate their future. And the reason I say that is because, and a lot of people know this, the Hawaii Governor Green, he's a puppet for the United Nations. Guess what he was, Jimmy? He was the keynote speaker for the UN at the UN for 15-minute smart cities. And he kept, he was the keynote speaker.
So this is too creepy.
It's too coincidental. That's why I say it still feels like an orchestrated gentrification. They're keeping these people in the dark from what happened. And that's the whole thing, is that you'll hear theories from everybody out there how this sucker started. Everything from the hardest conspiracy theory, from the space laser to the weather modification to climate change to natural disaster. But the real sin is that these conditions have been working up for a while. In other words, the way they kind of neglected Lahaina as far as water diversion, diverting water to all the golf courses and to the fancy homes and the fancy areas, while Lahaina continued to become drier and drier and drier and drier. One guy said to me, he goes, we don't need a space laser. I can go up there and drop a flare, and with these winds, it's going to go like crazy. So that's the big sin. For years, the water diversion to these areas, which kept these areas primed and ready for a situation like this to happen. They let it get to that way, almost on purpose. And now we don't know why there were so many failures during the crisis and shit like this. Take a look.
Today, Governor Josh Green was one of dozens of leaders and presenters from around the world who spoke at a high-level political forum on sustainability and hosted by the United Nations. The local regional government's discussion brings together dignitaries to share how they're implementing Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. During the governor's speech, he spoke on the traditional Ahupua'a model. That's a socio-economic division of land from mountain to ocean. Now, he says the viable values that come from that help when making policy.
So they twist it.
In the old days, decades, generations, and even centuries ago, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people lived in Hawaii and had a sustainable culture for food. And that was something that we still recognize. To that end, we have done some things, and we hope to be able to share this much more in time. One is the Aloha Plus Challenge, which is a data-driven approach, which we can share with our states and with anyone who feels that it would be helpful to track the SDGs, to make sure that we embed them in all of our policies.
Well, Governor Green envisions Hawaii one day being a bridge to other nations as a sustainable ally.
Governor Josh Green.
It's just more of the same over here. We're talking local channel, so I don't need to play it anymore, but I just wanted to get that in right away. But you can hear the buzzwords. Sustainable, right?
SDGs.
Yeah.
They come up with a new acronym. Cut it out.
All the time.
SDGs.
When I talk to the people of Lahaina, Jimmy, they're simple people, right? Everybody knew each other. They lived a simple life. They would buy fruits and vegetables on the streets and fish on the streets, and they knew each other. It was an old school, indigenous, simple way of living. So when this guy comes in with all this stuff and he starts kind of parroting, oh, that's sustainable lifetime, the old school way, he's twisting things because they understand it's about QR codes coming in, 15-minute cities. They're not being fooled. All the people in Lahaina know this shit, so this guy's fooling no one. And that's why they want transparency on all their elected officials. Where's your money? Where's your head? Are you tied to the WEF? Are you tied to this kind of agenda? That's why it's so coincidental. And now the next convention they were supposed to have, they moved it off of Maui and they're moving it to Honolulu. They're moving over to the next island. And a lot of people were pissed about that because they were getting ready to go protest.
Oh, so now the people of Maui can't go protest it.
Nope.
Unless they get on a plane.
I don't know if there's boats or whatever. Right. Yeah, but now they're moving it away from the people of Maui. Another big important thing. This is the second thing I've understood. Maui is open. And I heard the New York Times today. I was on Due Dissidence this morning. They showed me. The New York Times is kind of parroting this same type of kind of narrative over here. Despite Governor Green and Aquaman, that Jason Momoa guy, whatever his name is, telling people that Maui is closed, that is just not the case. I say this because 80% of the revenue and the money that comes into Maui comes via tourism. Yeah, it could be argued that that so much of the state's income shouldn't be dependent on tourism, but we have to be realistic and play with the cards that are dealt to us.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's telling people that Maui is closed,
why would he do that?
Because that's why I say it's an orchestrated gentrification. The first things first, the people who live there, the people who survived, if you really want that land, you got to get rid of them. There were already people who closed it up and said, I can't deal with this. I lost everything. And they moved.
It's so weird, all the people in charge, right? It just seems like they were handpicked by the WEF to come in and do this. That cop who was the cop at the Las Vegas shoot, he's the police chief. This governor doing this stuff, he's the guy who's giving the presentation to the UN for this thing. The water guy and the alarm guy, they split town.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The coinky dinkiness of all of this.
Yeah.
It seems like this is an orchestrated land grab.
Yeah, it is. That's what I'm saying. They want these people out. It's obvious. It seems that way.
Hey, so come see us live on tour. We're going to be in Detroit, that's Rochester, Michigan, Tampa, Boca Raton, Orlando, Dallas, Houston, San Diego, Bloomington, Illinois, where I went to college, Indianapolis, Levittown, New York, and Red Bank, New Jersey. Go to jimmydore.com for a list of all those shows.